Zach, thank you, sir, for making the time. Really, really appreciate it. I know things are hectic for you as always, so immensely grateful for carving out a little bit of space. So excited to chat, learn a little bit about your background, what got you into where you are now, and what you're excited about for the future. So thank you, man, for making some time.
Definitely, man. Yeah, happy to be here and talk a little bit about content creation.
Amazing, amazing, fantastic. So let's dive in and go back to Zach Humphries, the kind of beginning. Tell us a little bit maybe about where you grew up, your childhood, your teenage years. Give us that kind of flavor of how things were at that stage.
Yeah, man. So I grew up wanting to, have a voice, I think. I remember when I was like 6 years old, I would broadcast the starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls all the time. And so I actually pursued that dream for a while, was in sports broadcasting for about 7 years, radio and TV. And yeah, enjoyed it, loved it. But yeah, man, come from humble beginnings in the Midwest, in the United States, watched my dad work kind of three odd jobs and watched him kind of break away from the traditional 9 to 5. And that, I think that kind of inspired me. Little did I know back then, but, I look at it now in hindsight, watched him kind of create, his business and, be his own boss and that sort of thing. And slowly but surely kind of found my way there now as an entrepreneur, investor, content creator.
And broadcaster, as you said, your original kind of dream has really come to life in the modern version. Really, of being a broadcaster, I guess, is a content creator. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm fascinated on the sports broadcasting. I had a couple of years where I was deeply involved in radio, also, and had a kind of a vision of becoming a broadcaster. But I have to say, it's a tough graft. So, especially radio, I must say. Tell us a little bit about your experience there and how you got into it.
Yeah, so when I got to college, I actually got there on a golf scholarship, and I played a full year there on a golf scholarship. But I wanted to get into broadcasting, so I went and talked to some folks over, in the athletic department, and they were like, "Hey, we could probably get you in, and see how things go." And so I gave up the golf dream and got an internship. And then after a full year of an internship, I got an opportunity on local radio, starting with like high
Amazing.
school football, things like that, high school basketball. And then slowly but surely, you just kind of work your way up and loved it. Traveled with a D1 football team, worked in Chicago at Comcast Sports Network for a little bit, worked for the Horizon League Network, did some stuff for ESPN2. So just kind of piecing it all together. But you're right, man. It's a tough go because unless you're kind of at the top tier, you're not making a ton of money. You're traveling a lot, and so the more I kind of looked at it, I pursued some other things at that time. Went in and became a full time, basically a full time student again. Went back and actually got my PhD and was teaching broadcasting classes, but also marketing and business classes. And it was around that time where I was like, maybe I should start maybe getting back into broadcasting in some form or fashion. And it's cool on YouTube and things like that, right? You have full control. You don't have somebody telling you, which game you can do and can't do. And you got to wait for this guy to leave or that, for a
Yeah.
space to open up. It's the world we live in now. You can kind of create your own network. You don't have
Yeah.
to wait for the network to come to you.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. That's amazing. So I guess I'm really intrigued about being at a high level of golf that you managed to get a scholarship. How did you get into that originally? Was it just through kind of friends and family, and then I guess you were pretty competitive and obviously had a good standard.
Yeah, I always loved baseball growing up. My grandfather always wanted me to golf, and I didn't pick it up till I was like 14. But my grandfather was really, really good and kind of runs in the family. And then, yeah, just kind of fell in love with it, as I was going into my freshman year, and went to state a couple of times throughout my high school years. So that was fun. But yeah, I loved it, man. I do think there's some merit to the whole idea that sports give you, a lot of good life lessons. I
Yeah.
think that's super true, especially at a high level. And so I look back on those times and, definitely kind of set me up for, being a full-time entrepreneur and
Yeah.
being dedicated, showing up every day, all those sort of things.
Yeah, fantastic. Like even minutes into our chat, I'm already picking up on kind of so many lessons that you're sharing, like the grit that you learned from being an athlete that then led into, wanting to get into broadcasting. And I guess it's actually really inspirational for anybody who might want to become a content creator to learn that you really actually took the hard road, like trying to become a broadcaster in the traditional sense. As you said, it involves so much traveling, so many early mornings, late starts. You do not control your time. You don't control where you are, who's around you. Like you basically have zero kind of say in how it goes, except just gritting and kind of grafting away over years. So that's really inspirational. So I guess then, as you said, you went through that journey, with the broadcasting, but you went back in to do your PhD. Tell us about that. That's no easy feat. That's obviously a deep amount of work.
Yeah, yeah, it was something I was kind of doing. Well, I was pursuing my master's when I was working a full-time job, a couple different full-time jobs as a broadcaster, and
Yeah,
got persuaded to kind of go for the PhD. I don't regret it, but definitely didn't love it. It's a process that's very political and things like that.
really.
But yeah, man, I do miss kind of working with the students. A couple stops
Yeah,
I had along the road. I helped them create like a radio station, and working with the kids like hands on, I think was really cool. It wasn't sitting there talking in a classroom all the time. We actually got to go out there and do it. And now I look back and it helped me become, I think, a better broadcaster, because anytime you could take a step back and go back to level one, the best way to kind of hone your craft is to teach someone
totally.
what and I think looking at that, it gave me a different perspective and things like that. But yeah, it was kind of funny. I started my YouTube journey while I was still doing that, before I went full time with crypto and YouTube. And they all came to me one day and they were like, "Hey, are you on YouTube?" Like they all ran across the channel, and it was kind of interesting. And then like people who I work with were like, "What are you doing?" I really wasn't talking about it. I was just kind of doing it on the side. And
Sure.
it was kind of funny. Then like 4 months went by, and I went into my boss's office and told her I was, quitting and going to go do this full time. And she was like, "Yeah, I kind of saw it coming, but, best of luck," sort of thing. But it was cool.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I inspired some people too, through that process, that there's more ways to kind of do it. Um, if you got a voice, you have some knowledge, you have some passion about a subject, why not become, part of the creator economy?
Amazingly well said, and become your own media machine, exactly as you've done. Talk to us around, let's say, when you started to come across crypto, get involved, interested. How did you first kind of stumble across it? How did you build your first little bit of a community? And then we'll lead from there into, I guess, the day you decided to take your first plunge into making a video. But firstly, tell us kind of what year was it? Where did you first come across all things crypto and blockchain?
Yeah, I started investing heavily into the space in 2020, probably like mid 2020. I started like, reading books and watching YouTube videos of people who were already, putting stuff out there, and listening to a lot of different stuff, and just trying to compile a plan, a strategy, just in that learning curve of just, you know, diving deep into it. And when I got into early 2021, I said, and I was really kind of still trying to break through and start a business. I had probably started and stopped 4 different businesses leading up to this point, just trying to figure out a way to become an entrepreneur, or at least have a side hustle, I guess, at first. And the more I was like spending all this time learning about crypto, I'm like, well, I've got this broadcasting background. Why don't I just start a channel and, basically be real with the audience and say, hey, listen, guys, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm learning in real time. Come along this journey with me and let's learn together. And that was
Amazing.
about, 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago. And I think that's what resonated with my audience. Is I didn't come on there and say, yeah, I've got it all figured out, follow me. It was like, I don't have it all figured out, but I might know a little bit more than you, just because I've been diving deep into it for the last 6 to 8 months. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of hit home with people. Yeah. And then from there, it was just kind of off to the races.
Amazing, amazing. That's such an interesting insight for, someone who's thinking about taking the plunge, is that you don't have to have it all figured out. I think that's a big intimidation factor for someone who wants to put themselves out there, they always feel maybe there's a bit of imposter syndrome, but that does not need to be the case. Just like you said, you were really bringing people on a journey, regardless of the volume of people at the time. You wanted to broadcast; it was coming naturally from you, so you were going to go ahead and do it. So I guess then, as you were going towards, let's say, launching your first videos, talk us around that. Like, what was your cadence of output? Were you nervous at the start? Was your production value choppy, or did you feel like, you know what, I'm decently competent, I've been around broadcasting for long enough? Give us your sense of it at the time.
Yeah, you know what? And I still don't really edit my long form videos. I just kind of go. And if I stumbled, I just kept going. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things I think that I think it's one of the things that holds a lot of people back. They're like, oh, if I get started, I don't have an editor. I don't know how to edit. I don't think you need to. Like, I think there's a portion of the audience in every kind of sector you're in where, people just want to identify with somebody they like. I think, somebody they can relate to. So it really wasn't a thing where I was nervous about it because I had all that experience on radio and TV. And I think that's something like just the camera itself turns a lot of people off, right? It's like, I don't know if I can do this. Just talking to a camera is kind of weird. It wasn't that. It was more of, do I have the necessary knowledge to share? I think that was the one thing. But you know what? It's the hardest video you'll make is your first one. And you just get better and better with it. You get more knowledgeable and you just keep going. And I think consistency is key. You'll hear every person that's been a successful entrepreneur tell you just showing up every single day, even when you don't want to, is something you can control, but it's one of the most important things. So many people in the content creation game, they do it for 5-6 months. They don't see the results and they stop. I didn't see the results for 5 or 6 months. To actually take it back, I was creating content outside of crypto for 4 or 5 months, and I had like 40 subscribers on my channel.
Okay.
It was my first crypto video that I put out that I got like 2,100 views. And I literally had a conversation with myself the next morning because I woke up to like 2,100 views and like 30 new subscribers. And that was a big deal for me back then. And I said, I think this is it. I think I found my niche. And I literally remember having a conversation with myself in the mirror. Is like, don't screw this up. Just show up every day, continue to do it. And, you know how it is. A couple months goes by, a year goes by, and all of a sudden you're kind of doing this thing, and this is like the new you, and you just don't look back. And there's some tough days too, especially back in 2022 where I was like, do I got to go back and get myself a job? Views went down, but it's those days that I think, really dictate if you're, gonna have staying power or not, because it's not a straight line up when it comes to, subscriber count, or, there's times where it just ebbs and flows and maybe even lose some along the way. But yeah, man, you just stick at it and stick with it, and just keep going. I always tell people there's days where I'm not motivated to make videos, but because motivation is fleeting, it comes and goes, but you got to be dedicated. And as long as you're talking about something you're passionate about, not only is it going to resonate with the audience, but it's going to allow you to show up every day, even when you don't want to.
Yeah, such a good lesson, showing up every day, even when you don't want to. It's so key. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about what was the content of the channel prior to the first crypto video.
Yeah. I was trying to create content around like entrepreneurship. I was trying to create some things like, hey, here's some books I read, some things that kind of changed my perspective. And so I was going through, kind of like this more kind of catch-all entrepreneurship channel, but I really wasn't a successful entrepreneur yet. So probably why it didn't work. But I was just doing it anyway. Now I'm starting a second channel, just kind of going back to the drawing board, what I wanted to do. So I've got that kind of cooking a little bit. It's early days on it. It's got like 1,400 subs, but you got to start somewhere with it. But yeah, that's where I started from. And then I was like, hey, I'm doing this investing stuff. I'm doing this crypto stuff. I'll just put a crypto video out on the channel, and boom, it hit. And so I was like, all right, well, I've got this niche. I've got to stay in this niche. And but yeah, I've been doing that for a while. But now I'm like, hey, I want to go back and kind of do more of this catch-all entrepreneurship sort of thing. Maybe do some deep dive interviews with successful people, and put that stuff out there too. So I'm going back to it now, which is kind of exciting. Anytime you get to do something new, I think anybody who's been an entrepreneur for a little while will tell you, like, there's no better feeling than like the start of something new. you just get reinvigorated. It's like, this new thing we're starting, that you need that as an entrepreneur, so I'm excited about it.
Amazing, energizing massively. So I guess when, I mean, it was a very brave move for you to obviously leave the safety and the security of that robust role that you'd obviously worked so hard to land. A PhD is as I said, is no easy feat. So talk us around like that. I guess two things spring to mind. One, was there any kind of, were you fearful nearly of that day when the students came to you and said like, hey, we've seen you online? Did it feel like, oh my God, like I don't know if I'm ready for this yet? And secondly, I guess, were you daunted by the prospect of losing that security?
There's definitely some of that. But I think when you want something bad enough, you just kind of do it. And I know that's not the best way to describe it, and I say that because there's a lot of voices like, that'll be around you saying, hey, is this a good idea? Like parents, friends, right? Family members. And I think they want what's best for you. But when you personally want something, you just kind of have a different vision. And I always just said, hey, if it doesn't work out for whatever reason and I want to go back, I can go back, right? Like they can't take the degree away from me. I can always go back and fall back on this. So it is what it is, right? And I was like, let me just give this a try. But I remember when I was, already monetized on YouTube for like 5 months and I was working still full time as a professor and as a broadcaster. A buddy of mine in the space, Austin Hilton, who you probably know too. He's another content creator in the crypto space. He was somebody I reached out to. And I remember it was June 2021 when I reached out to him because I saw somebody who was further along the path than I was. And I think that's really important when it comes to mentorship. Find somebody who's doing what you want to do that's just been doing it a little bit longer. See if they're willing to help you. And I couldn't offer Austin really anything back then. But I remember I sent an email and he said, yeah, carve out like 3 hours. The next day was a Saturday. And he laid out the blueprint of everything. And he was like, by the way, you're really good. He was like, you're going to be quitting your job probably in the next 4 or 5 months. And I was like, well, maybe. I was like, I'd like to, play this out at least this year contract. He was like, if you show up every day, he's like, I'm telling you, we're going to have a different conversation before the end of the year. And by November, I was putting my 2-week notice in. And ever since I sent that email, Austin and I have been great friends and we talk literally almost every single day, whether it's text or phone call. And now I'm actually able to offer something to him. But I say all that to say, like, all that was an email. The worst that can happen was he doesn't respond or, you know what I mean? Whatever, but that was something huge. And I hear this thing all the time, like, oh, I'm self-made or, and I think that's kind of an American thing too, because we're so like concentrated on the individualistic aspect of things. Find good people and build out your network and learn from them and create a think tank. It's so much easier with 4 or 5 good brains that are all on the same wavelength to get ahead than it is just by yourself. So I never think like, I made this decision on my own and I did this my own. It's like there's a lot of people there that kind of help you through that that whole process. But it's kind of long-winded, but I thought about that as I was answering. So
it's absolutely amazing. I mean, there's so much insight within what you've shared. Like the fact that you have, it's a good example for someone to take the plunge, send the mail. There's nothing to lose. It doesn't cost anything. You never know what will come from it. I think that's a fascinating point. Second is that you are proving and have proven that putting yourself out there online can lead to genuine lifelong friendships. Like you've got a friendship there, as you said, you guys are in touch 7 days a week in some form or another, which is absolutely amazing. And you're invigorating and energizing each other now years later, which you probably never could have envisaged at the time. So I think the big takeaway is that to see the fact that this leads to real friendships, real relationships. It's not just kind of you isolated in a room. So I think that's one of the aspects as well that often can be a fear factor for folks who are thinking about going online or putting themselves out there. It's that, this sense of, well, I'm going to be so isolated. It's always me. There's no one to help. I'm never going to really maybe I'm not going to detract myself from the world. That's something sometimes we hear from guys who might have had a very much in-person full-time job prior to going online, but then they realize in actual fact, this leads to a whole world of relationships, not only with, peers like the other creators that you're now very, very close to, alongside obviously your audience, which is a big factor as well in what has kind of gotten you to where you've been. So yeah, super, super inspirational. So I guess then from that point, that's kind of around 2021, 22, I guess at that point. Talk us through kind of the next couple of years. I guess it was just, as you said, compounding effect was kicking in. Some months, some quarters were easier than others, but you just kept showing up every day and kept producing.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and you find different things to create, or a better way to say it, you find different problems to solve, because as you grow an audience, you kind of know what they want from you, and you kind of, then once you have a base, an audience, you basically have free marketing, right? So now you can create a product, a service that meets their needs. And I've done that, you know, with XT Algo, a company that I created in 2023. This is a, you know, trading indicator company used for crypto, stocks, commodity trading, all of the sorts. And I saw a problem there because a lot of new folks were coming in and they needed some type of tool that was somewhat watered down from the tools that were out there, that was easy to use, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the great thing about, you know, building your personal brand, is that now the world is your oyster, right? Like, if I would have had this great idea of a, you know, trading indicator without having a personal brand, you can have a great idea, but how do you market it? How do you get it out there, right? How do you get it to the people who need to see it? But if you have a base of people, you know, right now I think I average in a so-so market like 1 million views a month. If I have a
Amazing.
problem to solve, or something I think that people could utilize, I don't have to go pay for marketing and hope they see it. I could just talk about it. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, that's really the evolution of becoming a content creator, is once you grow that personal brand, you've got so many other opportunities that open up, you know, outside of, you know, companies that are coming to you to market their products. You could also create your own and
Yeah.
market it, you know, directly to your audience. So
100%.
yeah.
You've gone and exactly branched out into multiple different directions from kind of what you've built over that time. So it's super inspirational, I guess, going back to your early kind of entrepreneurial days, really. And it's amazing to see the full circle come back, where, you know, you were producing this kind of catch-all entrepreneurial content. You niched down into crypto. You learned and evolved with the audience. As you said, you kind of sensed what they wanted, and then you've moved with that at the same time as actually building products that have equitable value. I think that's the most interesting thing as well about this. You've got the personal brand. You can therefore solve problems. You can therefore build equitable value that you can then exit in the future. So I think that's another aspect that's super interesting about what you've alluded to, is that some people also maybe have the fear that, well, you know what, another reason to not put myself out there online is that I don't want to do this for 20 years. I can't show up every day for 20 years, but you're proving that, you know, you're building businesses that have value, that you could flip and you could exit. And if you ever decided one day to go offline, you're going to be plenty comfortable to therefore be able to do so. So I think that's another super inspirational point.
100%. Yeah. And I think, you know, once you start building out your number of assets that you have, like, it makes things a lot more, I don't want to say easier, but at least clear in terms of like your trajectory, you know, and kind of where you see the business going. You know, entrepreneurship is not for people who like comfy, though, you know, like, it's not for the comfortable folks, which is fine. But I enjoy it, man. I love like the unknown, or, you know, get an idea and yeah, let's go try it, you know, because, you know, you don't get that necessarily like in a traditional 9 to 5. You know, you got to kind of stay within the boundaries, stay within the lines. But yeah, man, my hope is to kind of grow out more of a personal brand on the, you know, overall investing, entrepreneurship side of things, interview, you know, intelligent people, and extend my brand from just, you know, a crypto content creator to something a little bit more. And yeah, so that's kind of the hope right now. And the thing is, I love content creation too. I love it. So I mean, that's why I make multiple videos a day. It's what I'm good at. Like, I'm not good at math and science, you know, but I could read, write, speak. You know, that's kind of my thing. So I enjoy it, man. Most days I would say, you know, 29 out of 30 days in the month, like, I'm motivated as hell to get up and make videos and enjoy it. You know, just passionate about it. But
And
yeah.
Yeah, natural communicator. I go back to the word natural broadcaster. You really are such a good example for anybody who might, there's often a lot of folks who will look at maybe people who are in radio, could even be local radio, doesn't need to be anything crazy, and they might look at them or towards them with admiration. But you're proving that, you know what, you can do that, and frankly, you can do it dramatically bigger if you stick with it. Because as we've alluded to, building a career in radio, be it local, be it statewide, be it nationwide, it's not an easy path, and it does not necessarily come with huge rewards versus, if you find your path and something that you're passionate about, not only can you get the rewards, but you can build a community, which is super exciting. Like the relationships, the friendships that you have with your audience is, I'm sure, so invigorating. And I'm sure that's what partly helps kind of keep you fueled on those 29 out of 30 days, or maybe in fact it's a thing that gets you to do it on day 30 when you're exhausted, which I think is super interesting. And then also, as you said, it now opens up a world of opportunities for like the foreseeable future. Would you, in your gut, in your heart, do you foresee you will be making content for the next 30, 40, 50 years? Does it just feel like your natural path now for the foreseeable future?
Definitely, for a really long time, but all while building other businesses too, and building out team members. I've hired some people now. That's the other thing. Once you get to a certain point, you start to delegate some things so you could do the things that you want to do, rather than doing some of the things that you're not as passionate about. Because what I always say, man, is you have time and energy, and how you spend your time and energy is going to really dictate like how you feel, and if you're happy and all that. So I think that's been a blessing, man. I've got to this point where I don't have to do all the things I don't want to do. I've hired some people out, but in terms of content creation, yeah, man, I love it. I don't see myself really going away from it anytime soon, but it's not going to be the only thing I do. It's just going to allow me to continue to do what I love, and also, grow out other businesses. And if I have a different idea or something, or can solve a problem, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go try it.
Amazing. Yeah, super inspirational. So if someone is looking at this now and they're thinking to themselves, you know what, I'm on the brink, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of months, I really want to do it, what would be your super simple advice just to, get someone over the line to get that first video on the go?
Just hit record. Even if it's your phone or whatever, right? Don't get held back by I've got to edit this, it's got to be perfect. That's the other thing too. Every video is not going to be a good video, and you just got to be okay with that. Really early on, man, it's about reps. It's about quantity. It doesn't have to be about quality. Like, quality could come, you're going to get better naturally. And then when you get to a point where you're making money at it, then invest in yourself. And if you want to invest in an editor, or invest in, a new camera or whatever, go for it. But I remember when I was creating content, when I first started, I was using a laptop that was making all kind of funny noises, and it was taking me, 2 hours to upload it. And I mean, it was, not the best setup, but it's what I had. And, it worked. It worked well enough early on. So just hit record.
Stick with it. Yeah. Super inspirational. I mean, when we reflect upon what you've shared, you've really given us some gems, Zach. I'm super grateful for it. When we track back all the way to, growing up in the Midwest, leading into the golfing scholarship, getting that kind of competitive nature, leading in then to the broadcasting, which was what fascinated you, but then realizing, you know what, I can be my own broadcaster. I can follow my own path. I don't have to go through the traditional TV radio flow, which can take 30, 40 years before you even land a show, and therefore make it kind of pay its own way. I think that's really inspirational for folks who might want to, or might have an interest in that. And then also tying in with the fact that you really reiterated in multiple great ways to show up every day, even when you don't want to do it. You just got to keep the cadence, keep the flow. And even when you feel like you don't have the tech, you've got steam coming out of the laptop, it's just not working for you. It's just to, keep that presence. So I think that's like super, super inspirational for anybody who is thinking about making that pivot online. I guess to wrap up, I'm again really grateful for the time. What is your what keeps you excited about, let's say, the crypto market, especially, and being, let's say, focusing on that area of your broadcasting? What keeps you most excited about crypto? Is it the fact that there's so much happening? Is the mass adoption? Is the institutionalization over the last year or so? What lights you up?
I think what makes it so exciting is it's different every single day, and there's so much happening all at once. And from a investment standpoint, from looking at it in that lens, it's like the best opportunities are in speculative markets, right? If you go back 25 years ago, it was the dot-com era. So if you can find yourself in an area that's new, exciting, where most people think you're crazy for being there, you're probably in the right place. And we've got this whole boom happening with AI and the merging of AI and crypto and blockchain and tokenization. So to me, it's just we're still super early. We're in this, market that is that's still new. We're still trying to figure it all out, but it's a speculative market, and that's a great opportunity for you to hit, a home run. And I think that's what draws a lot of people into the crypto space.
Yeah, such a good message. Exactly that. It is super early days. And I think that's the big thing for anybody, whether they're interested in becoming a crypto creator like yourself, or even if they just have a career and they realize, you know what, having a personal brand would be no harm. I think that's a really interesting point, that phrase that you use as well around personal branding. Like, it can help even if someone is, an accountant, a lawyer, or whatever. Having those around you know you is going to be massively beneficial to your career. And as you've proven, going back to that email to Austin, it opened a door that you probably never could have expected. And here we are so many years later, you boys are friends, building businesses, building all sorts of other things, which is so invigorating looking from the outside in. So Zach, super grateful for the conversation. I'm excited to maybe have this again in a year's time, see where things are going with the second channel. I love feeling the energy from you on that front. And I'm sure it'll be, no doubt, another home run.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. This has been fun.